Troy Terry in the lineup would probably be the better option.
Yeah, no, that's true. I would take the skill of Troy Terry any day. I think he needs to be the option here for Anaheim in the playoffs. As everyone has been talking about, we've always wanted to see Troy Terry. And when there was an opportunity for him to come into this lineup, everyone got really excited about it. And then they were really quiet about the injury. Remember how weird it was? Eric Stevens didn't even mention that there was an injury. Like, he just waited till the next day. He's like, oh, I guess I should have said that. It's just really weird. And nothing against Stevens. Stevens is great. But it was weird the way that kind of transpired and everyone found out there was an actual injury on him.
Yeah, and then after that, we really never heard anything about his injury after that tweet. And even going into this game, we didn't really hear anything saying that he was back and healthy from his injury, whatever it ended up being. So it's a weird situation. I don't know if he was actually healthy scratched, if maybe he did have a nagging injury. I guess we'll have to wait and see in Game 1 and see if he's in the lineup or not. But for the Ducks to finish off here, Hampus Lindholm fired it from the length of the ice into the empty net. Ducks end up winning the game 3-0. Shots on goal with 31 to 27 Anaheim, but that doesn't matter. Ducks win the game, get 2 points, and then we all had to sit and wait. At the time I think this game ended, Dallas was up 4-0 on LA in the first period. Jamie Benn had a natural hat trick in the first period. That game finished 4-2 Dallas. LA Kings fall into, or I guess they stay in the top wildcard spot, and they end up playing Vegas in the first round. And then we're sitting and waiting for the Wild and Sharks game to end, which started well. The Wild were up 2-0, and then I checked back probably about 5 minutes later, and it was 2-2. And it was a little bit nerve-wracking. But then the Minnesota just broke out. Ended up winning the game 6-3, and the Ducks clinch home ice. I mean, who would have expected this, really? The way they were starting. Even, I think it was 7 games ago, or maybe a little bit longer than that, there was one point where the Ducks were 7 points behind San Jose, and we were sitting here saying, oh, it would be nice if they got into a Pacific Division spot, and they climb all the way back on the last day to pass the Sharks. I mean, what a grind.
I didn't expect it. I mean, I really did not think this was going to be what the Ducks were going to be able to do in the second half. I mean, they've come out storming, and they've really just shown that they can play together and work through adversity. And honestly, goaltending. I mean, that's how you're winning games when all these injuries are going on. I mean, Ryan Miller, we talk about Giddy all year, but Ryan Miller's really done a number this year. And I know it was against Arizona, and he didn't face the hardest of competition, but you got to come in and work every night, and he helps the Ducks clinch that spot. I mean, where would they be without him? Really, Miller's really stepped up.
Yeah, exactly, and it always helps too, winning the last 5 games of the season. And I believe San Jose, I'm gonna have to check here, they lost 5 of their last 6. So they got a little bit of help for sure from the Sharks and the struggles that they had. But you got to give them credit for going out and winning those last 5 games to get in. Because it was great. They gutted out some of these games. Some of them they dominated. Some of them they didn't, and they had to hang on. So it was just a great effort to eventually get to that spot and get home ice, which is so important in the first round of the playoffs. But I want to have a look here at some of the players that had better seasons compared to last year. There's a lot of guys on this list. These I think these were updated before the game against Arizona, so if some of the points are off, that would be why. But I'll go down the list here. So John Gibson had a 9.26 save percentage this year, better than last year, which was 9.24 or .924. Derek Grant, 24 points this year versus 4 last year. Adam Henrique, obviously this has changed now, but 48 points at the time we had written this down versus 40 points last year. Andre Kasher, 38 versus 15. Lindholm, 30 versus 20. Manson, 36 versus 17. Miller, a huge jump in save percentage at .927 versus .914. And Ricard Raquel finishing at 69 points versus his 51 last year. Just a lot of guys stepping up when some of the big guys weren't having great years or were out injured.
Did anyone listening in the chat, pop in and let us know? Anyone expect Hampus Lindholm would have 13 goals this season? I know that everyone knows that I love that guy. But, I really feel like he has that opportunity to step up again next year and get in the 40, 50-point range. That's my expectation. I know it's very lofty, Eddie, and I know that you probably disagree that he's going to be able to jump up another 10 to 15 points, but that's my hope.
I mean, he very well could. He had 31 points in 69 games. So he did miss 13 games this year. If you look at his point pace, that's probably, if he has a good couple games, 7 or 8 points on top of what he already has. So he's sitting then around 38, 39. That's very, very close to the 40-point range. And if he takes a step forward next year, then he should be past that 40-point mark. 50, I think, would be a stretch. He would have to... I think he'd have to get a lot more opportunities on the power play where he hasn't necessarily looked great if he was going to get over 50, but I think 40 is within reach. If he has the same responsibility, the same role that he has had this year, next year, and plays a full 82 games, I think he can definitely hit 40.
I hope so, man. I mean, the Ducks really need that guy. We've always said it was going to be Fowler, and that was going to be the offensive defenseman that this team needs. It's great to see Hampus step up and really turn his game to an offensive side of things. We see him on the power play now, so there's opportunity. I know I'm a little high on the ladder for him about how well he's going to be playing, but I mean, I think the biggest thing that happened here this year was Ondrej Kase. I mean, what a player. I mean, he's really come in and just owned his roster spot and has been just a key guy in big games. I mean, hitting overtime game winners. He helped the Ducks clinch. He gets the goal there against Minnesota. So, I mean, what more can you ask of that guy? I mean, 22 years old and just performing above and beyond expectation.
Yeah, nobody expected this guy to come out and get 20 goals this year and to be a guy that would stick around and be a huge part of this team's success on the third line. I mean, it's been unbelievable. A guy who's a 7th-round pick, already up against it when he was drafted, didn't expect to probably even make the National Hockey League, but just worked hard, worked his way up, and from the moment he got into the lineup for the Ducks, he made an immediate impact and made it impossible to take him out of the lineup. And that's what you want. You want a guy who works hard and who makes it difficult for you to take him out of the lineup. And there's a reason he's still sticking around, because he's pulling off plays and, like you said, scoring goals, game-winning goals. He's doing things that matter for the Ducks, and he's going to be a really big part of this team's success in the postseason as well.
Yeah, he has to be. They need that depth scoring. Going back to the chat right now, our buddy Jimmy, he's in there, and he said that he won't be surprised. He's not surprised and won't be surprised when he's a Norris candidate, referring back to Hampus Lindholm. And I hope so, man. That was my thing. He's got to be top 10 across the league. I mean, if he just keeps stepping up that offensive play, there's no reason why he won't be. And then Gordon Bombay has to come in to be a dream killer and say, you're going to be sad when they trade him. If they trade him, I might have to revoke my fan membership card to the Ducks for at least a season. I'll be so pissed. That's how much I think that he means to this team overall. I mean, really. But and then Drew points out that he's also coming off a pretty brutal shoulder surgery, which is the case. I mean, the Ducks got hit with both of those, with Sammy Vatanen and Lindholm with both those torn labrums, which is awful. So hopefully next season we see more out of him. But back to Kasha, like you said, I mean, you have to take a veteran spot, and he did. He's really made a name for himself on that line. And, I mean, you got to give a lot of credit to Henrique, too, right? Coming over and performing really well from the trade, and has made no mistake in Anaheim. And I think he's been great, too. I'm excited to see what he's going to have to offer in the playoffs, and we get another year out of him, which is awesome there. So looking forward to see how he develops.
Yeah, and Derek brings up a good point as well. He said Kasha probably could have gotten 25 goals if he wasn't injured this season. I mean, he played 66 games and got 20 goals. He still had 16 possible games to play. I feel like in that time span, he could have easily picked up at least 5 goals and finished at around 25, if not closer to 30. I mean, 20's not a number to slouch at anyway, but I mean, imagine that if he could have hit 25 or got close to 30, and if he can consistently do that, he's going to be a valuable member for this team, and a guy who can eventually jump up into the top 6 and be a guy that's relied upon more. I mean, imagine if he starts getting consistent power play time, he gets relied on a little bit more, plays some more minutes, some top minutes. He could be a very dangerous player, even more so than he is now.
No, it's true. And if it's not for McDermott on the Kings earlier this season, we might have seen 5, 6, 7 more goals out of him this year. But we got next season and playoffs to look forward to, man. The playoffs are huge. They're coming up. Ducks secured home ice. Do you want to jump into the series that everyone's chomping at the bit?
Yeah, I think we have to. And we'll open it up because we had a question that we're going to do this anyway, but it centers around what we're going to discuss. So Katie asked us on Twitter, she said, on the blue line, in net, on the wing, at center, and special teams, who has the edge in each, Sharks or Ducks? And we'll break into that in a bit and get everything broken down. But one thing I kind of want to mention here, and it just kind of summarizes the series as a whole. I think this was from the Ducks article that they put out after the series had been confirmed. So it says that these clubs first met in the 2009 Western Conference quarterfinals. The Ducks served as the 8th seed at the time. The Sharks entered the playoffs as the President's Trophy winner. And this series here marks the second time in NHL history that two California teams faced one another in the postseason. This will be the third time coming up now. And the Ducks eliminated the Sharks in 6 games back then, became the 5th number 8 seed since the expansion era to upset the NHL's best regular season team. Obviously, different circumstances going into this, with the Ducks being the 2 seed in the Pacific and the Sharks being the 3 seed. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be an exciting series. It's the one that we picked as our second option behind the Ducks playing the Kings as looking at favorable matchups. But I think the Ducks still match up good against the Sharks. It's going to be tough. I think a lot of it hinges on when Joe Thornton comes back for San Jose, because that's going to make them that much more of a scary team. But it's going to be an interesting series.
No, it is. I mean, the Sharks went 3-0-1 against Anaheim this year, and all but one of the 4 matchups ended up in a shootout. So they're close games. Yeah. And, I mean, that 6-2 win the Sharks had over the Ducks, I mean, the Ducks really outplayed the Sharks. I mean, we talk about that game a lot. But the Sharks just were more opportunistic, I guess, and they just got luckier. It just happens. You could be dominated a whole game and still win, and we've seen that from our Ducks all the time. But this series is going to be slightly less of a bloodbath. It's still going to be nasty. This is a nasty team. The Sharks, especially if Joe Thornton comes back into the mix, he's world class. I know he's older and he had these injuries, but you still got to fear Joe when he's out on the ice. And I really feel like I don't think we're going to see the gloves drop as we did with Getzlaf and Thornton back in 2009 at center ice. But that would be awesome if this game culminates to that. It's exciting, man. I think this is going to be a good matchup for the Ducks. Much more favorable for me than Vegas. So let's get into it, man. What do you want to start? You want to start on the blue line since that was the first one she mentioned? Do you want to talk about the Ducks versus the Sharks D?
One thing, right on cue, Eric Stevens tweeting out that games 1 and 2 of the Sharks-Ducks series are going to be Thursday and Saturday, and games 3 and 4 are going to be Monday and Wednesday. So we know now when the games are going to be. So game 1 now is going to be on Thursday, game 2 will be Saturday, game 3 Monday, and game 4 Wednesday. So it doesn't change anything, but just so you guys all know, I'm sure you'll have seen it by the time you listen to this show if you're not listening live. But Eric Stevens kicking it off right on cue. I guess we'll start with the blue line, and we'll look at, first of all, goals against per game that the Ducks have and the Sharks have. So the Ducks have been great defensively all year. A lot of that is on goaltending as well, but the goals against average is 3rd in the National Hockey League at 2.55. And the Sharks is 10th. So they're still a top 10 team at 2.76. And then, I think the Ducks have a slight edge here. And I think they have a slight edge on depth in defensemen if Cam Fowler was in the lineup. I think him being out makes this a little bit closer. I don't know how you feel. I mean, we'll break down each pairing after this. But I think it's a lot closer than it would be if Cam Fowler was in the lineup.
No, absolutely. I mean, I agree with that. We talked about that too. Once we found out that Cam Fowler was 2 to 6 weeks, that we felt like it was easier, to have Gibby injured than it would be to have Fowler injured, just because of his ability to move the puck, his power play skills up there with Montour. I feel like is just invaluable to this team, and you got to make the best of your chances. So when you get a power play in the postseason, I mean, you really got to bury those chances. And they're really going to miss Fowler for this series. Yeah. I don't think he's going to come back. So I don't know. Having Pettersson and Welinski, we talked about it last show, that doesn't sit well with me.
They struggled
the Ducks
again.
are going to be really missing. Really missing Cam Fowler.
Yeah, the Welinski-Pettersson struggled again in the game against Arizona, which obviously doesn't bode well for a series against the Sharks if they're going to be paired together. But let's jump in to the pairings. And we'll start with the Sharks because we know who the Ducks pairings are going to be, and we'll get into them after. But the way the Sharks pairings look like they're going to be going into the playoffs is the first pairing is Paul Martin and Brent Burns. The second is Mark-Edward Vlasic and Justin Braun. And the third is Dylan DeMello and Brendan Dillon. So I feel like, obviously Brent Burns makes that seem a lot better. Paul Martin is a guy, I think 5 years ago, you would have said, oh, that's a pretty good top pairing. But he's been in and out of the lineup all year. And I think he spent some time in the AHL, finally got called back and solidified his spot to kind of be the anchor to allow Brent Burns to do what he wants on the blue line. So that I think they get the slight edge in star power on that top pairing with Brent Burns. But other than that, I mean, Mark-Edward Vlasic and Justin Braun is a pretty solid pairing. Brendan Dillon and Dylan DeMello, I think, is probably a better bottom pairing than the Ducks can put out right now. But I would still give the Ducks a slight edge. I feel like having